Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to yet another episode of Tech and Time Lapse. And today, well, it's the Auto Zone, so we're definitely talking about cars. And I know this is quite unconventional. We're talking about cars, and I'm sitting in a bedroom. Like, what's the correlation? Well, as the correlation, so I haven't officially done a car review in a little bit, and that is primarily because I usually rent cars when I travel, and I travel a lot, so that's why I started doing the car review thing because well, I'm having all these random cars to try, and they're usually within a year or the same year that I'm actually trying them or pretty much trying them out or like reviewing them. So it's like relevant, and that's why I actually started doing the reviews for cars, if that makes sense. But thanks to brother COVID, or Mr. COVID, I haven't been able to travel and actually do reviews the way I want to. So that being said, I actually eventually went on my next trip on my a major trip this weekend, and I decided to try out one of those cars. I actually tried out three cars on this trip, funny enough, but one of the cars that I tried out happened to be, well, you guys know already, it is the Hyundai Venue, or Venue 2020, and I was like, yeah, this car is pretty much new to the industry. I actually haven't tried it out. Now I'm a big Hyundai fan because I've used a lot of cars on their lineup as a personal daily driver for myself in the past. I used the Tucson, I used the Elantra, and I've rented a lot of their cars each time I travel, and so it just makes sense that I was interested enough to actually want to make the review for this car. So that being said, let's get out of here and get into the cars and do a proper review. All right, hey guys, welcome back. And right in front of us is actually the vehicle. Here is the Hyundai Venue 2020. And frankly, what first strikes me with this vehicle, just staring at it, is it's got this look of, at least from the front of it, you can see it actually has this look from, if you watch the Transformers back in the 80s, it literally gives you like an Optimus Prime kind of like look from the 80s, that it's just kind of like a little bit trippy. But I like the way they use like all the triangles and like the curves, and it just gives it a little bit like of a beastie kind of like feel into it, where it's like you're looking at a beast, but it actually is a really small SUV. Like this is a subcompact SUV. I'm talking about it being a subcompact SUV. This is actually the second in the lineup that Hyundai is making. The first one definitely was the Kona, which was a great success in my opinion. But when you look at this, especially from the sides, you could know straight up that this car is a direct copy of the Kia Soul. Literally, it's like they took the imagination or the brain around the Kia Soul and kind of like made their own imitation or a copy of it. And it kind of like makes sense because we know within the subcompact SUV category, Kia Soul has actually been one of the highest rated, or actually what's the highest rating currently in the industry. So right up on the front, I've got the lights kind of like put down a little to the somewhere in between the grill and where you'd actually have the regular headlamps, and it's like kind of like trippy, but I actually like it the way they've actually done the light setup. And then you've got the trafficators or indicators just right on that corner, and depending on which version you go for, this is the SE, you've got more options around that circle. Going into the side of the vehicle straight up at this point, you can actually tell that this is an imitation of, as I said, it's got the slightly boxy view that you get with the Kona, but you can tell that it's been streamlined, reduced, and has a little bit of the soul kind of like feel to it, which actually gives you straight up that this is actually a really subcompact SUV. On the back, I actually like the design. It's pretty sleek, straight up, nice, and yeah. Overall, for the design, I'll probably give it like a 8. It's not too crazy. They kind of like try to work with industry standards and create something new that works. And I would say I'm actually okay with that execution. Going into the vehicle though, it's a totally different vibe. You've got the chairs. You've got this design right in the center console, which actually was a little trippy to me. So I know I'm using the word trippy so much, but the way it's designed, where you actually have, it's kind of like, I'll call it an infinity center console, where you have like multiple columns or compartments that actually slides all the way to the back, and it actually kind of like makes it more useful and helps you manage the room in that space, because of course, you know, it's a very subcompact SUV and they're trying to maximize space, which overall helps to give you a very very nice, comfy, and big enough interior, despite the fact that it's a very small vehicle. On the infotainment side, all of them come by default with the 8-inch heads-up display, and I actually really love the integration this year. So where the heads-up display has been placed, it's really kind of like intuitive. It's not too up there, it's not too down there, integrated into the dash. It's just right where it should be, kind of like perfect, right in between the vents, and you can easily access everything you want to access, read off whatever you want to read off, and it just kind of like works. I like the execution. As I said, it's really kind of like really intuitive. They really thought about this well, and the engineers really executed this really well. Of course, almost everything in the interior is made out of plastic, but the way the grills and everything has been made makes it, and the accents of the colors, the way it's been mixed, helps to give it kind of like some premium aluminum feel, a little slightly leathery kind of like feel towards the right side when you look at the right side of the dash, which is the passenger side. And I like this column which they put in here, this compartments where you can actually start like your bottle or like your milkshake. So your milkshake, your water bottles or whatnot, and just put it right there on top, like right in where you should have the glove compartment, just right above that. It's kind of like just gives you more room and more space within the vehicle. For leg room, it's actually decent. I think any 6-footer don't have so much problem. The headroom is decent. The leg room is also very decent. And yeah, overall, space wise, interior wise, I would probably give it an 8. The interior was really maximized. So, for the hood, pretty much all of them run the same engine. It's a 121 horsepower engine, and of course, that's a 4-cylinder combined with a continuous variable transmission or a CVT transmission, with the exception of the base SC model that actually also comes by standard or by default with the 6-speed manual transmission. Now that can always be switched into the CVT if you prefer that option, and I think that's actually for free now. Don't quote me on that, I'm not so sure. But yeah, right up from there, that is pretty much enough decent power to actually power this vehicle through the city and probably merge onto the highway. I actually didn't have real issues merging onto the highway, but probably I should just switch into driving from here. It gave enough decent power to actually drive on the highway, and it didn't feel too laggy. The response time was technically okay, but overall the drive experience was meh. Let me just put it that way. The car felt like you had to continuously kind of like keep on with the steering, even though it had lane, pretty much the keep in lane safety feature, which pretty much helps it to keep in lane, and all of those extra features. Still, the car was oddly balanced if you try to like push it above 60 miles an hour. The balance, which I was actually really disappointed about, because Hyundai for me actually makes some of the best handling SUVs in the industry, at least from the Tucson, which I have driven a lot of times. I actually owned one eventually. The handling, the balance on the highway was actually really decent and stable. But for the Venue, it just feels very laggy. It feels very out of place. It's like the car is so small that the engine, though it's small, it's pushing it beyond its capacity, and it's just once you push above 60 miles an hour, it just kind of like starts to like wobble in a kind of like funny way, and that I really didn't appreciate. But that being said, the handling was still superb. I still give Hyundai probably one of the best handling in the industry so far, and it actually really did deliver on that. But almost every other thing as regards to the driving, even the road noise was acceptable, but was actually to be high. All those extra parts kind of like made the driving for me not so impressive, so I actually give it probably a 6.5 on the driving experience so far, and that ties in straight back into the engine. But now let's go into probably the part that actually impressed me the most with this vehicle, which comes standard on all of them, is the fuel safety feature. So you've got lane departure warning, emergency braking assist, blind spots monitoring, red cross traffic alerts, and a whole lot more that just comes with this vehicle. Of course, some of the features you need to get, and probably the biggest part of it, which I really liked, was if you stop on the pretty much you stop, you're following the vehicle, and the vehicle actually moves and you don't move, probably you were distracted, or probably you were trying to change something on the console, the car would actually alert you that the vehicle in front of you has started moving and you should move. I was actually really tripped up by that, and I actually really did like that. So the driver attention warning has actually really been upgraded and actually really does work the way it should. And I do appreciate that in this vehicle, as I said. So the infotainment system I mentioned, you have an 8-inch screen up there. You've got 4 speakers set up with the SC, and for the SLE and the premium version, which they call the Denim, comes with a 6 speaker setup. All of them actually enable you to use either Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto, depending on whichever side of the fence you actually sit on. But overall, I would say, yeah, it's a decent vehicle. It's kind of like nice that when they actually released this to pretty much, I'll say, technically battle the Kia Soul, because that's really where I think they're trying to sit on. And it's also got like a decent amount of capacity in the rear. You could actually fold the rear seats to get even more capacity for storage and things like that. For the price point, it actually starts as, I think, the cheapest SUV in the market right now. So it kind of like really solidifies and hold in that space. But from all the reviews I've actually read, so not just me just giving you the review from my own perspective now on the vehicle, but from also other reviews that I read, there are 3 trims, which is the SC, the SCL, and the Denim. The SCL is kind of like a waste and shouldn't technically exist, because if you go for the SCL but you want things like automated like key entry, where you don't need to like push the start and all of these extra features, it's going to cost you an extra 2006 as high as 3 grand to get all those extra advanced features into it. And by the time you add that into it, it becomes a little more expensive than the Denim is, which all those features come standard in the Denim. And so it technically doesn't make sense to buy the SCL, because you could just trade up a little more, get the Denim that has more features and pretty much spec'd out over the potentially decent increased spec SCL. But so far from me, overall rating, if you're looking for a pretty much subcompact SUV that you want to use within the city, you're not trying to do highway, you're not trying to go on long trips, all of that, and you're just pretty much living within a city, and you're just trying to get a car you can actually enjoy and just go on cruises with. So it kind of like works within a city pretty much. If you want a city SUV that is also conservative on fuel, the rating puts it somewhere between 30 and 35 miles a gallon. From my own personal perspective, so while I rented this, I actually rented it for a little over a day, and I drove pretty much all around Las Vegas, and I didn't need to refill it, so I actually returned it. I took it full. I returned it full without actually adding gas into it. Shh, don't tell them that. But pretty much it was enough. So it actually lived above the 30 miles a gallon, which was the estimates in my own opinion. So that is pretty much decent for a city. For pretty much an SUV actually these days, that's very decent. Most SUVs stand within like the 28, like the 25 kind of like range. That being said, there are a few orders that stand around the 30 mile a gallon. So, but for the full conservation or for its full economy, it is very decent. So overall, if you're trying to get a city car, please, a city SUV or a city subcompact SUV, please, you can grab this. But if you're trying to do highway travel and all of that, please don't get this. And for my own personal self, would I buy this vehicle? Hell no. I think it just stands right there. So thank you guys for watching this episode of Tech and Time Lapse. Please, if you want us to do more of this, please just hit the subscribe button, like, share this video. If you love cars, you love everything tech, from phones, gadgets, and all of that, that's pretty much all we're about, and that's all we do. Please like, share, and thank you so much for joining me on this one. See you guys on the very next video. Until next time, my name is Say Journey, and peace out.